Hi friends, this is Bakappa. Welcome to JavaScript tutorial full course. You can find all the exercise which we have done in the JavaScript tutorial full course. You can simply go to the google.com and search for the Bakappa in GitHub. Go to the my GitHub page and here over repositories, you can simply search for the JavaScript tutorial full course. So in the first two folders, you'll be seeing all the examples which we have discussed in the VS Code, and you will be finding another text file. So in that text file, it contains all the examples which we have discussed in the terminal and as well as in the web browser console. So far you have seen how to get started with JavaScript, variables, strings, numbers, booleans, objects, arrays, regular expressions, operators, and control statements, switch statement, ternary operator, type of operator, and for loop, while loop, sets, and maps. And in this chapter 5 of JavaScript beginners full course, you are going to see functions, classes, constructors. So firstly, we'll start understanding about the function. What is function? What is the syntax? And we'll see the example for the function. And next, we are going to see how to pass the arguments to the function. Then we are going to see how to pass the variable length arguments. Then next, we are going to see how to pass the references to the function and how to get the updated object properties. Then next we are going to see about the classes, constructors, and then finally we are going to see about the inheritance in the JavaScript. In this JavaScript tutorial, you are going to see about the functions in the JavaScript. So let's start understanding about the functions in the JavaScript, and we will see the syntax and examples. So let's see what is function first. So JavaScript function is a block of code and that is designed to perform a particular task. And functions will be invoked whenever it is called explicitly. In a nutshell, we will be writing a code block and that will be getting executed whenever we call the particular function by specifying the function name. Let us check the syntax now. So it will start with the function keyword and the function name and open and close brackets, and after that we will be opening the curly brace, then we are writing the code block here, and then we are closing the curly brace. So this is a basic function syntax, and we have the syntax too. So where we are passing the arguments to the function. If you look at the arguments here, argument 1, 2, 3, and so on. And whenever you get these arguments, you can manipulate those data, or you can, based on the need or based on the demand, you can manipulate all the arguments data, or you can perform some operations using these arguments. So that code block will be coming over here. So it's very much similar to the basic function. So this is how we can pass the parameters or the arguments to the functions in the JavaScript. So let's see the examples. What are the examples we are discussing in this functions with the JavaScript? The very first example is we are going to implement the basic function, and then in the second example we are going to implement a function with the arguments, and in the third example we are going to create a function and where arguments are optional. You can call a function by passing the argument, or you can call a function without passing the arguments also. That can be done in the JavaScript. And the last example, we are going to implement a function with variable length arguments. For example, let's take an example of addition of numbers. If I pass two numbers, it will perform the addition of two numbers. And if I pass five numbers, it will perform addition of five numbers. If I pass seven numbers, that will perform the addition of seven numbers. So if you look at the total number of arguments, that's a variable length. How you can implement a function that accepts variable length of arguments? Then that particular example we are going to see at the end. So let's navigate to the VS Code. Let's start implementing the very basic function example. So simply I will create the one JS file here as functions. Here I'll say file.1 and then I'll say .js. So that's it. So let me maximize this window. Now you can implement functions by writing a function keyword followed by that. Here you can provide the function name. So here I'll say speak something as the function name, and here I'll add the brackets and I will open the curly brace and I will close the curly brace. So here I will write console.log statements. One is that simply I will add the message as good morning, and then I will write another console.log, and here I'll say good afternoon, and then I will write another last JavaScript statement, that is console.log, and here I'll say message as good night. So that's it. So this is a very basic function we have implemented in the JavaScript, and you can call this particular function by using the function name. So let's use the function name, and simply I will copy this and I'll paste it here. Now let's run this particular JavaScript program, and if I run this particular JavaScript program, and it is going to print us the good morning, good afternoon, and good night. So let's validate the output here. I will open the console, and if you see the output here, our function is invoking correctly, right? It is firstly printing good morning, and then good afternoon, then good night, right? So simply I will add the console.log over here, and then simply I will add the just some statement here to separate the output basically. And if you see here, say for example, I want to invoke this particular code block 3 times. So I need to write all these 3 lines again and again, right? So that can be done by creating a simple function, and simply you can, after creating a function, directly you can call this particular function. So if you are implementing a functions in the JavaScript, basically you are not writing the duplicate code. So you need to avoid always writing the duplicate code in the JavaScript. So that can be done by implementing the functions. So for example, I want to call it once again. I don't need to write this whole code once again, right? Simply I will call this particular method. So let's call this particular method another 2 times. So now this particular output will be printing 3 times. And if you see here, so this is the first time whenever we are calling here, and whenever I'm calling second time, it is printing this particular output, and whenever I'm calling third time, it is printing the third set of output, right? No need to write this particular 3 lines every time if I want to invoke these 3 lines in my JavaScript code, right? So this is how you can implement the basic functions in the JavaScript. So let's try to implement the functions with the arguments. So what we will do is we'll add 2 numbers by taking the arguments from the whenever we are calling the method. So here I'll say function, and followed by that here I'll say add 2 numbers. And here, as I said in the syntax, right, here we have to pass the parameters or the arguments name, right? So here I'll say number 1, then here I'll say number 2. I want to perform addition of 2 numbers, so that's the reason I'm accepting only 2 numbers. Whenever anyone is calling this particular add 2 numbers, they have to pass 2 arguments. That's the 2 numbers. Now let's open and close the curly braces. And here I'll write simply return statement. So whenever I'm calling this particular method, this should return the result of addition of 2 numbers, right? So that's the reason I'm writing the return statement. So this will return you the addition of 2 numbers result. For example, number 1 value is 10 and number 2 value is 20. 10 plus 20, it is a 30. This particular function will return you the 30 as the output. So let's add the numbers now. So simply I will take the number 1 here I'll place it inside the brackets, and I will use the addition operator, and followed by that I will pass the number 2. Simply we are adding the two numbers by using the addition operators. That's it. So we have implemented a function with the arguments. Now we have to call this particular method, and also whenever we are calling this particular method, we have to pass the number 1 and number 2. So let's call this particular method add two numbers, and here we have to say so here I'm passing the number 1 as 10 and number 2 as 30. So this particular method returns the result, right? So simply I will save into the variable called result1, and then let's print the result1 by using the console.log. So here I'll say console.log. Then I will add the message over here first, and then we will add the this particular variable, the addition of two numbers is, so that's it. Now I will pass the result that is coming from the add two numbers method. So that's it. Now let's run the program. So the output should be 30. And if you see the output over here, the addition of, sorry guys, let me just update the message. So let me run it once again. And if you see the output here, the addition of two numbers is 30, right? So let's try to call it once again. So here I will just copy the same statements. I'll pass it here. You can call a number of times wherever it's required. Here I'll pass this time 50 plus 50. The output should be 100. And then here I'll update the variable name to the result2, and I'll pass this result2 over here. So that's it. Let's run the program once again. And if you see the output over here, so firstly it is computing the first addition of two numbers, and that result is 30. And the second time the addition of two number value is 100. So that's the expected output. So this is how you can implement the basic functions and functions with the arguments in the JavaScript. Now I will start discussing about the functions with the optional arguments. For example, whenever we are calling method, right, like this, we can pass the arguments, or we cannot even pass the arguments also. That particular function will invoke. But in this case, right, so we have to pass two arguments. So that is mandatory. So where some functions will be even optional also. They will accept an argument. Otherwise, it will work with the optional data, whatever the existing data they have with the parameters. Now let's start implementing the functions with the optional arguments. So here I'll say, I'll add the comment as functions with optional arguments. So let's write the function keyword followed by that. So here I'll say print message as the function name. And here, as I said, so we have to add the argument name, that's a parameter name. And also we have to assign the value to that particular argument, so that whenever user is not passing any value as a parameter, then it will invoke with the default value. So let's say here what equal to, here I'll say JavaScript tutorial. So let me just remove this A and add the S, and that's it. Now I will add one more thing here, one more parameter. Basically, you can, if you want to play around the one parameter, simply you can add one parameter also. So in my case, I'm adding another parameter as how many, and here I'll say as 5. So what I'm doing is, so here I have created a one argument name as what. So here I'm assigning the default value as JavaScript tutorial, and I'm creating another optional argument, that's how many, and I'm assigning the default value as 5. So here I'm just writing one for loop, and that is running 0 to the how many times. So it runs basically 5 times this particular for loop. So here I'll say index is less than the how many variable, so that contains the 5 as the value, and that's it. So what I will do is simply I will print the this particular what message. Let's say if this particular how many value is 2 times, if it is a 2, it will runs this particular for loop 2 times. Right now it is 5, so this particular loop will run 5 times, and whatever I have written inside this particular statement, that will be getting executed. So here I'm saying control.log, and simply I want to print the message, that's a what, whatever the value we have added inside the what variable, that is going to print it. That's it. We have created a function with optional arguments, and if you see here, whenever user called this particular print message method, they can pass the argument explicitly. So they have to pass the two arguments. One is what, the message, and second argument is how many times they have to pass it. Otherwise, if they are not passing any arguments, simply they are calling this particular method. So whatever the default value we have added here, so these things will be getting invoked. Now let's see how we can call this particular method. So first time we are calling this particular method without passing the argument. So basically what it does is this particular function, it runs 5 times. 5 times this particular message will be printing. That is a JavaScript tutorial will be printed 5 times because default value is this particular message, that is a JavaScript tutorial, and 5 times. So it will print the 5 times JavaScript tutorial in the console output. Let's get this particular statement and I will add it after calling the method. Then we will run the JavaScript program, and now we will validate the output. So let's see the output, and if you see the output over here, JavaScript is printed, JavaScript tutorial is printed 5 times, and if you see here that count, because it is showing the count, basically it is printed the same message 5 times, right? Now this time what we will do is, so it is taking the default values, whatever we have written there with the function, that is taking the default values this time, because we never passed the arguments over here. Now this time what we will do is we will pass the arguments. So what we are passing is here. So here I'll say first message as, that's a what, for what we are passing the one message as tester stock. Then I want to print, so how many, we have to pass the how many, the default value is 5. So now we are passing the argument here. So here I'll say I want to print 2 times, and if I execute this program, tester stock will be printed 2 times, right? Because now this time we are passing parameters or arguments explicitly. Let's run the program and we will validate the output. And if you see the output over here, so this particular message is printing with the default values, and whenever we are calling second time, so we are passing the custom message and also custom count. So we are printing only 2 times tester stock. So this is how we can implement the functions with the optional parameters or the optional arguments. Now let's see how you can implement a function that accepts variable length arguments. For example, so if you see the example of add two numbers, so in this case we have to pass only two numbers. For example, if I want to add three numbers, so again I will have to come here and I will have to pass the number 3 here like this, and again I will have to add the plus, that's addition operator, and number 3 if I want to add 3 numbers. And if I want to add 4 numbers, again I will have to pass the variable as the number 4, and again I will have to add the number 4 to this particular list. Then I will get the addition of 4 numbers. So how you can avoid implementing a function like this? So basically we are going to implement a function that accepts variable length of arguments. So let's see how we can implement that. So here I'll say function, followed by that here I'll say add numbers. So here I'm not giving any specific add two numbers or something. So here I'm saying directly add numbers. So that's it. Now here I'm going to create a one variable called var, and here I'll say total. So I will assign total value to this particular variable whenever I'm adding the any given numbers. And then I'm writing a one for loop here. So that will iterate if I get 10 values to this particular add numbers, that will iterate by using the for loop. So here I'll say length I will have to specify. So here I'll say arguments dot length. So this particular arguments length will get the total number of elements or total number of numbers are coming to this particular method. So that's it. So that this is a very simple for loop what we have written. So it is running from the 0 to the length of the arguments based on the user passing number of arguments. Now what we have to do is we have to get sorry guys, we have to get one by one numbers and we have to add to this particular total variable. So what I will do is simply I'll say total plus, and I will get this particular arguments of, and I'll say index. That's it. Then I will assign back to the total. So we have done it in the very easy manner, guys. So what you need to understand here is we have the one arguments. So by using this, we are finding out how many numbers are there, and we are getting every number from that particular array by using the index, and we are adding this particular number to the our total. So this particular total variable contains the addition of the all the numbers. If I pass 5 numbers, that contains the addition of 5 numbers. If I pass 10 numbers, that contains the addition of 10 numbers. So at the end, I'm saying return statement. Then I will return the total variable value. So that's it. Now we have to call this particular method and we have to pass the variable length arguments. Let's pass the two numbers in the first time. Simply I will call this particular method, and then so it will say 10 plus 20, and that will returns you the one result. So here again I'll say var test result 1. So that's a variable name I'm giving here, and then we'll print this particular variable value by using the console.log. So here I'll say addition of two numbers is, then I will pass the test result one variable value over here. That's it. Now let's run the program. At the end, the output of this particular addition of two numbers, that's add two numbers method, should return as the addition of these two numbers, that's 30 as the output. So let's run this particular program, and we'll start passing the variable length arguments also. So it is returning as some exception. So let's look at the exception. So it is saying that it is not a function, add numbers, and let me just check it. What is the issue over here? Just give me a few seconds. Okay, so here I'll say brackets instead of that. Let me remove the and if you see the output over here now, just I have fixed it. So here we are passing the index, so that's the reason we have not written a proper bracket. So that was the small issue. And if you look at the output over here, the addition of two numbers is 30. Now let's perform the addition of four numbers this time. So simply I will copy this and I'll paste it here. So here I'll say this one variable as test result 2, and here I'll pass another 10 and another 20, and this is the addition of four numbers, right? Now I will pass this particular variable over here, and here I will update the message as addition of four numbers. Let's run the program, and output will be, it is 60, right? So basically it is adding the four numbers this time. And like this, let's add the addition of five numbers also. So we have to pass the 5 arguments. So here I'll say test result 3, and I'll pass this variable over here, and I will pass the another argument here as another 10. That's it. So this time the output of this test result 3 would be 70. Just we are adding the 10, but we are passing the total number of arguments is 5. Let's run the program and we will validate the output. And if you see the output here, so 70 is the expected output, right? So this is how you can implement the functions with variable length of arguments. In this JavaScript tutorial, we are going to see about objects, references, functions in the JavaScript. So in this topic, what we are going to do is we are going to create an object, and also we are creating the function that accepts reference as an object, and how you can update the object properties by creating the function. Now I will navigate to the VS Code. Let's see an example. So here I'll quickly create the one JavaScript class as references.js. Here I'll say underscore 5.4 and then I'll say .js. So that's it. Then I will maximize this window. So let's create an object of the car that contains the properties. We have already discussed this particular example while discussing the objects in the JavaScript. So here I'll say var, and followed by that I will say car. So here I'm firstly creating the car object, and that contains the couple of properties. For example, car brand, car price, and car color. So here I'll say brand and then colon. Then I will add the brand as, so let's say Audi, and then I will add another property called price. So here I'll add some random numbers. Then I will create another property called color. So here I'll add the color as white. Yeah, that's it. So we have created a object of car in the JavaScript, and also we have added a properties as brand, price, and color. So for example, in the later point of time, I want to update this car object properties. For example, I want to replace this brand Audi with the Nissan or Ford or Benz, or I want to update the color property value. I want to replace this particular value with the red or the green or something like that. If you are having a number of properties, so there might be cases you need to update the all the properties and respective values, right? So in those cases, you need to implement a simple method so that will updates your object properties. So let's create a simple method, and here I'll say get updated car details. So this particular method updates the car object properties based on the demand or based on the need. And this particular method is accepting the one reference type, that is the car object. So here I'll say car object. So by using this car object, let's say I want to update the brand. So I want to update this particular Audi with the Benz. So simply I will use this particular reference variable, that's the car object dot. So here I'll say brand. Then I will assign the respective value. So here I want to replace Audi with the Benz. So here I'll say Benz. Then I want to replace the color also. So similar way I will use the car object dot. So here I'll say color. So I want to update the car object property color with the red. So that's it. Now what we will do is, so let's, before calling this particular method, so let's print the default object and respective properties by using the console.log. So here I'll add the one message called car details before updating. So that's it. Then I will pass the our car object. So let's run this particular program. So this will print the default car object properties. So still we have not used this particular method, or we have not called this particular method. So we will call this particular method bit later. So let's see whether it is printing the default car details or not. So let's run this particular program. So I will open the console output, and if you see here, so our program got executed and it has all the properties. And if you see here, brand is Audi and it has the price value and the color is white. Now what I will do is, now I will call this particular method by passing this car as a reference to this particular get updated car details method. So simply I will call this particular method down, and then here I will have to pass the reference to this particular method, right? So I will pass this car object to the get updated car details method. So that's it. So after updating car details, so let's print the car details. Whether car properties are updated or not, we can check it by printing the car object once again. So here I'll say car details after updating. So firstly, it has to print all default properties. That's the brand as Audi and price some value and color as white. And after that, second time we are printing, and before that we are updating the car properties by using the references. And if you look at here, so we are replacing the brand and the color. So let's run this particular program and it should update the car object properties. So let's verify the output here. And if you look at here, so car details before updating, so it has the default values. Brand is Audi and price is some value and color is white. And if you see here, car details after updating, so brand got replaced with the Benz this time. Previously it was Audi, and we have not updated the price. And if you look at the color property, so previously it was white and this time it is red. So this is how you can play around the objects, functions and references in the JavaScript. In this JavaScript tutorial, we are going to see classes in the JavaScript. So let's understand what is class first, and we will see how to create the class and how to create the object of class with an example. So class is a template for the JavaScript objects, and it contains the constructors and functions. So we will talk about the constructors in the next tutorial. If I say about the constructors in one line, so these are the kind of functions, and these constructors will be invoked whenever we create a object of class. So class is not an object, and class can be created by using the class keyword. So this is the syntax. So syntax 1. So this particular area is for the creating the simple class. So it starts with the class keyword followed by the class name, and here we can create the constructors and functions or the methods. How you can invoke these functions and methods? By creating the object of class. So if you look at the syntax 2, so this is the syntax for creating the object of any class. So here you can start writing the const, var, or even you can write the let. By using these three keywords, you can create the object of the class. And if you see here, next we are writing the object name, and we are using the assignment operator, and then we are writing the new keyword followed by that class name. So that's a constructor. So let's see the example how you can create the class and how you can access the properties of this particular class. So that is nothing but how you can invoke the functions of the class by creating the object of classes. Now I will navigate to the VS Code, and here I will create the one JS file. So here I'll say classes underscore 5.5.js. So that's it. Let me maximize this window. Now let's start creating a simple class. So we'll take the same example. We will take the example of car. So here I'll say firstly class keyword, followed by that here I'll say car. And here we have to write the open and close curly braces. Inside this we can write the constructors or the functions. So as of now, I'm going to write two functions. So here I'll say print brand. So I want to print the car brand by taking the one argument. So that's what is a brand. So here I'll say brand. I want to print this particular brand by using the console.log. So here I'll say one message called car brand is. That's it. And I will pass this particular brand. Whenever anyone is calling this particular function, so they have to pass the car brand name. And similarly, I will add another method called print car color. So here I'll say, that's it. I will accept the car as a argument, and simply I will pass this particular car over there in the console.log statements. So similarly, I will update this particular print car brand. So that's it. So this is how you can create a class in the JavaScript. So you need to start writing with the class keyword followed by the class name, and you need to write the open curly brace and you need to close it. And inside this particular class, you can implement the functions or the constructors. So we'll see how to implement the constructors in the next tutorial. So this is how you can create the class in the JavaScript. Now, how you can access all these methods, right? So what you need to do is you need to create a object of this particular car class. And if you see the syntax here, we can use the three keywords. You can use const, var, or let. And after that, object name, new keyword, and followed by that class name. So let's create an object and then we will access the all these methods. So here I'm creating the object. So here I'll say create object. So here I'll say var, followed by that I will give the object name as car object. Then I will add the new keyword followed by class name. So simply I will pass the class name as car and followed by that brackets and semicolon. This is how we can create the object of any class in the JavaScript. Now let's print the brand, car brand. So by using the car object, I'm going to call the method called print car brand. So let's pass the car brand as argument. And if you see the method, this particular method, so this method is accepting brand as the argument. So let's pass the Benz. That's it. Now let's run this particular program and it should print us the car brand is Benz. And later we'll call the second function, that is print car color as well. Now I will run this particular JavaScript program and I will open the console output as well. And if you see here, so it is this particular print car brand is invoking, and if you see the output here, car brand is Benz, right? So that particular method is getting invoked by using the car object. We are calling the print car brand. And similarly, we can use the again car object dot, we can print the car color as well. So here I'll say print car color. So let's pass the argument as, so here I'll say car color is red. So if I execute this JavaScript program, and this will invoke the second function from the car class. And if you see the output over here, firstly it is printing the car brand is Benz, and secondly it is printing the car color is red. So this is how you can create the classes and objects in the JavaScript. In this JavaScript tutorial, we are going to see constructors in the JavaScript. So let's understand what is constructor first, and later we will see the examples for the constructors in the JavaScript. So we'll see what is constructor first. Constructor is a special method of a class for creating and initializing an object instance of that class. So what does this mean is, say for example, you want to initialize some data or you want to create some data before calling any methods from that particular class. So those things can be performed or those things can be done within the constructor. So constructors will be invoked whenever we are creating an object of the class, and class can have only one constructor. And if you see here this particular statement, class cannot have the more than one constructor. So coming to the syntax, so within a class you can create a constructor. So firstly we are creating the class, and then inside the class we are creating the constructor. Then you can create the functions or the methods. The syntax for the constructor creation is you need to use the constructor as the keyword, and here you need to specify the brackets and open and close curly brackets. Within this you can write the code block that will initialize some data for your methods or some connections you want to create it before performing any operations with respect to the business workflow. So let's see an examples for the constructors in the JavaScript. Now I will navigate to the VS Code. Let's create a quickly here one class, sorry, one JavaScript file. So here I'll say constructor underscore 5.6.js. So that's it. Let me maximize this window. So what we will do is we'll create a simple class, and within that class we are going to create a constructor. So here again I will take the example of car. So here I'll create a class called car, and within this I'm going to create the one constructor, and followed by that I'm going to write one console.log. So that is going to print the some message in the console output. So here I'll say console.log, and here I will print the message as the car brand is Nissan. So that's it. So as I said in the definition of the constructor, constructors will be invoked whenever we create an object of the class, right? So here I'm creating a constructor. So this constructor will be invoked whenever we are creating an object of this particular class called car. So let's create an object of the car class. So right now we have created one simple class. Within this class we have created one constructor. So this particular constructor should be called whenever we create an object of this particular class. So let's create an object of the car now. So here I'll say var car object, and then I will say new, and I'll say car. So that's it. So let's run this particular program, and this particular constructor should be called. So as we have created an object of the particular class. So let's run the program now, and I will open the console output. And if you see here, so our constructor is getting called whenever we are creating an object of the class. And if you see the output here, so this particular message is printed from our constructor, right? Now, in the JavaScript, you can create the parameterized constructors also. So as I said, you can create only one constructor in each class. So let's copy this particular constructor. So now I will be creating a one parameterized constructor. So here I will comment this part, and also I will comment the line number 11. So what I will do is in this constructor, so I will accept two arguments. One is brand, and second one is here I'll say color. That's it. And here I will print the message as firstly the car brand is, I'll print the brand whatever we are getting from the brand. Here we are printing the brand. Now I will print the similar way color as well. So I will copy this statement and I will add it here. So I will pass this particular color variable over here. That's it, guys. Now, so previously we were just creating an object without passing the parameters. So this time we have to pass the parameters. If you look at here, so this particular constructor is accepting the brand and the color. So I will pass the firstly brand and then color. So firstly I will say Benz as the brand, and then I will pass the color as white. So now if I run this JavaScript program, it should print me the car brand is Benz and the car color is white. Now let's run this program. And if you see the output over here, so firstly it is printing that the car brand is Benz, and then next it is printing the car color is white. So like this you can create n number of objects, and also you can pass the n number of data sets. So here I will pass next time. So here I'll say car object 2, and here I'll pass the brand as Audi, and then I'll say red as the color. So whenever we are calling second time, so whenever we are creating a second object, right? So again, once again, it is going to invoke this particular constructor, that's a parameterized constructor, and it is going to print the given brand and given color also. So let's run this program once again. And if you see the output, so this is the first set of output whenever we are creating just car object, and whenever we are creating a car object 2, and this is the second set of output what we are getting it. So brand is Audi and color is red. So this is how you can create the constructors, that's the default constructors, and this is how you can create the parameterized constructor. And also you can create the functions or methods in the same class. So let's create a simple method here. So it will say print message, and so here I'll print the one message called JavaScript. So it will say JavaScript tutorial full course. So that's it. How you can invoke this particular method, right? You might be having this question in mind. So simply you can use any of the object. So you can use the car object or car object 2 also, and then simply you can call this particular method. So here I will use the car object 2, and then I will call to the method called print message. And this particular method will print us this particular message, that is a JavaScript tutorial full course. So let's run this particular program now. So it should work perfectly fine. And if you see the output here, so firstly it is printing the car brand and color, that is from the first object, and after that again it is printing the car brand and color from the car object 2, and at the end so it is printing the JavaScript tutorial full course from the print message method. So this is how you can create a class, constructors, and also functions in the JavaScript. In this JavaScript tutorial we are going to see inheritance in the JavaScript. Firstly, we will be understanding what is inheritance. Then we will see the examples for the inheritance in the JavaScript. So let's see what is inheritance. Inheritance is a concept of inheriting the properties of base class to the subclass, or you can inherit the properties of parent class to the subclass by using the extends keyword. So in a nutshell, in the base class, we will be having the functions or methods. So those can be inherited by using the extends keyword in the subclass or the child class. So coming to the syntax. So we will be creating a class which has the functions or a methods. So these functions or a methods can be inherited in the child class by using the extends keyword. Followed by that, you need to specify the parent class name or the base class name. And you can access all the properties of this particular parent class by creating an object of the subclass, that's the child class. So let's look at examples for the inheritance in the JavaScript. So I will open the VS Code here and I will quickly create the JavaScript file as inheritance underscore 5.7, and here I'll say .js. So that's it. Let me maximize this particular file. And here, so I'm going to create a one class called parent and another class called child, where I'm inheriting the properties of the parent class to the child class. So inside this parent class, we are going to create a simple one method. So that will perform the addition of two numbers. So here I'm going to create a class called parent. And here I'm creating a one method called add two numbers. And I will accept the number one and number 2. So here I'll say number 1 and then number 2. Then I will write the return statement, and inside the brackets simply I will add the number 1 addition operator followed by number 2. So we have created a class called parent, and inside that we have created a function called add two numbers, and it is accepting two arguments. One is number 1 and second one is number 2, and then it returns the addition of two numbers. Now I will create the another class called child, where I'm using the extends keyword. So this will inherits the property of the base class to the subclass, or parent class to the child class. So here I'll say parent class name as parent, and then so that's it, guys. Now in this particular class child, right, we have not created a method called add two numbers, right? So if I create an object of child, I can access the properties of this particular base class. So let's create an object of child, and let's see whether we can access this particular method in the subclass by using the child class object. So here what I will do is simply I'll create an object. So here I'll say const followed by that child object, and then I will say new operator, and then I'll say child constructor. So that's it, guys. We have created an object of child class which does not have the add two numbers method, but still by using the object of child class I can access the property of the parent class, because we have inherited by using the inheritance by using the extends keyword. So simply I'll say add two numbers. So here I'll pass the 10 comma 20. So 10 plus 20, it is 30 is the result. And if you look at this particular method, so this particular method returns the addition of two numbers. We have to save into the variable. So here I'll say var result. Then I will print this particular result variable value by using the console.log. So here I'll say message as addition of two numbers. Then I will add the variable. That's it, guys. Now let's run this particular program, and the output should be 30. So let's view the console output, and if you see the output here, addition of two numbers is 30, right? So here I'll say addition of two number is, and I will rerun this particular program, and if you see the output here, addition of two number is 30, right? So this particular child class does not contain the function called add two numbers, but it has the method by using the inheritance concept. It is using the basically it is inheriting the properties of the base class, that's the parent class. And also you can create the functions within the child class also. So let's say here I'm creating one function called print message, and here I'll say just console.log. So basically you can invoke the current class functions also by using the same object. So let's add the one message here. So here I'll say JavaScript tutorial full course. So now I will invoke this particular method. So this method is present inside the child class only. So already we have the object of the child class. Simply I will use that particular object, and then I will call the print message. Then let's run this particular program, and if you see the output here, so firstly it is invoking the method which is coming from the parent class, and in the second time, so this particular message is coming from the own class. So this particular function is implemented within the child class only, right? So this is how you can inherit the properties of base class to the subclass, and also you can add the own methods within the subclass or the child class in the JavaScript.